kind of PowerPoint presentation of kind of where we stand and what the issues are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Did y'all get one of the,
Thank you.
good deal. They're out there, and if you didn't get one, I'll tell you what, Charlie, hand those out for me, please. Thank you.
Do you got an extra one? No, he's
Sure.
getting it. No, that's okay. He's got one right there.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Our current situation, St. Mary's Tax Digest, increased to 5.18%. Georgia law requires that a rollback millage rate be computed to offset any inflationary increases in the digest. The rollback rate for this year is computed at 5.205. What that means for our viewing public and our audience is basically that's taking it down to the value of what our tax revenues are showing. Pretty much, okay, good. So, our property tax, this is kind of how it looks, with our gross property, both real personal, motor homes, mobile homes, timber, heavy equipment. Basically, our digest is looking at $1,052,374,330. That is a 5.18% increase in our tax digest. Looking at the millage rates, excuse me. Our current rate that we're working on as we speak is 5.439%. Well, mills, excuse me. If we do the rollback rate at 5.205, that would bring in $5,477,608. That is actually between what's budgeted and what's levied. That would bring in basically $50,000 thereabouts more than what we budgeted for. Okay. That would equate to a 0.65% increase from the prior year, but that would be a flat rate is the way the state of Georgia reads it. Okay. Just to give you a little bit of history, this gives you a line graph of how our digest has worked over the years. You've seen a very dramatic increase since 2020. There's our millage rate history and how it has kind of flowed over the years. And just to combine them so everybody can kind of see that, the red being the millage rate and the digest being what you pay in property taxes. If you currently own a home in St. Mary's, and every year some properties are reassessed, some properties are not reassessed. If your home was not reassessed this year, then there will be no change if we were to keep the millage rate the same as it is right now, which is at 5.439. There would be no increase. If you did see an increase, and we'll say on a $300,000 home, and you saw a 10% increase in your assessed value from the tax appraisers, Camden County Tax Appraiser's Office, you saw a 10% increase, then there would be a change in what you would pay, keeping that millage rate the same. I just want to make sure everybody kind of understand how this plays. So at 5.39 at $300,000, you paid this year $652.68 to the city of St. Mary's. If it was reappraised, and for the upcoming year, you would increase up to $717.95. That is a $65.27 increase over a year. Okay? Everybody kind of understand how that works? This is our fund balance, the history of our general fund. You can kind of look at that. Currently, we're hovering around $12 million in our fund balance. Is that right? Did I say it right?
That was at the end of last year, or the beginning of fiscal year FY '25. We don't have, at the beginning of '25, we currently don't have the financial reports are not, the final financial reports are not done yet. The auditors are working on that. So we don't have a number for the end of June for '25 yet.
So the final slide, and I'll be quiet for a little bit. This is just a graph. This shows how our general fund revenue. The blue is the tax revenue that we get in on an annual basis. Total revenue. And the orange or gold or whatever color that may be is what it has contributed or has come out of every year. And you can see in 2018, we dipped into our fund equity pretty hard. If you remember what happened in 2018, that was Hurricane Irma. Okay. You can also see we dipped into it again in 2020. That was COVID. Okay. That's what caused that line to drop. The ARPA money that we received is what caused that line to go back up to where it is, that 15.78%. Just kind of give you some visuals, if you will, of how our fund account's going. If we were to stay at the existing, or were to take the rollback rate, we would not have had these meetings, okay? But council made the decision that we need to let our public understand all these numbers. And this is for the council to hear your opportunity to voice your opinion. So with that, Robbie's going to be quiet unless you have a question. Pardon me.
Okay, I guess this morning I had maybe a different tact of kind of trying to give a little more explanation. We didn't have the PowerPoint working where you could see it, and I do have some comments about why we're choosing to stay where we are. But I guess I would like to first open it up to the public, since that's what this is for, and kind of hear everyone's comments, and then I think several of us, have some comments that we'd like to share about why we think it's prudent to do what we're doing, or maybe not. I mean, I'm not saying that we all agree 100% on what we're doing here, but we wanted to have put this out there and get comment on where we're at. So with that, I'll open the floor up for anyone who has comments. If you come to the microphone, please give us your name and your address, and try to keep it to no more than 5 minutes, please.
Good evening. Valerie Fouts, 310 West Bryant Street. And I've got a couple pages here. I'm just going to read off some kind of punch points, and I understand you're not going to be able to answer them all, but I would like them for the record, please, Deborah. Okay, a couple weeks ago, there was great interest in the county tax situation. I believe then that the general consensus was the county did not have a revenue problem, but it does have a spending problem. So I'm wondering if the same is true about St. Mary's. I have several items I would like for council to comment on, provide financial information, and consider. Firstly, the new City Hall. The property was purchased in October 2023. As I recall, the city said this property was a bargain and needed very little expenditures to convert to City Hall. I believe the projected move date was early 2025. I could be wrong. I would like to have a discussion and accounting of the expenses incurred by the city for that property, such as an annual insurance cost, annual utility cost, maintenance cost, repair cost, and costs associated with the senior center. These are costs which currently provide little or no benefit to the citizens because City Hall is still occupied. There was movement in 2024 to utilize private contractors for mowing and landscaping duties, formerly handled by the city workers. What is the actual savings from this decision? Exit 1. During 2025, considerable work has been done at the site. What is the revenue benefit to St. Mary's in 2025 and 2026? There should be a substantial increase in property valuation due to this construction. This one here is kind of a different one, but we've kind of touched on it before in talking with different people. The Park Service parking. The Park Service has utilized the cemetery property for parking since June. What is and has there been revenue that the city has realized from that arrangement? Because that could have been generating some money for the city because they've been using our property. Cumberland Inlet. What was the outcome of the bankruptcy hearing yesterday? It was reported that $123,000 in property taxes were in arrears. What amount of property taxes are due St. Mary's? Who will pay for those taxes? Note, the JDA is funded by the taxpayers. Lastly, the Emergency Operations Funds. Is 6 months really necessary because hurricane season is practically over? Perhaps the city should par that fund down back to 4 months. How much of that fund was utilized in each of the prior 5 hurricane seasons? That may be a good indicator of fund requirements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ken Jelly, 102 Saltgrass Trace, St. Mary's. Mr. Mayor, council members, I think you've done a really good job in managing the budget and taking care of expenses, and in all the hard work that you've put into the recommended budget for the coming year. There is one thing, however, that disturbs me, and that is, in the event of a catastrophe of some sort, something as simple as a Category 2 hurricane coming ashore from the Atlantic into St. Mary's. Now, we're only talking a Category 2 storm, but nonetheless, that's 110 miles an hour. Coming in off the Atlantic, we're talking about a storm surge of up to 8 feet. 110 mile an hour winds, 8-foot wall of water coming into St. Mary's from the Atlantic Ocean. This level of storm surge can cause extensive damage, widespread flooding, extremely dangerous winds. Okay, so we've got a Category 2 storm. Let's talk reality. First, to put that storm surge into perspective, and y'all can laugh if you want to. If I stood on the mayor's shoulders and then we both stood in front of Seagulls, that gives you an idea of what an 8-foot solid wall of water coming in, pushed by 110 mile an hour winds. That water is going to go at least all the way up to Point Peter. St. Mary's is going to lose all power. St. Mary's is going to lose all of their transmission towers. They're going to lose all of their communications. They're going to lose all of their water service. The water towers are going to be blown over. You're going to have no sewage service, no water, no electricity, no communications. And I think that that is something we really need to plan for. We hope it never happens. It can be a different type of a disaster. The city, all of you collectively, are being charged with the responsibility to ensure that all of our residents are safe in the event of an unforeseen, catastrophic event that takes place. We need the money. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Bert Seals, 518 Riverview Drive. I had the opportunity to comment at the county council, sorry. By the time we got there, it was really civilized out, you know what I mean? And things were pretty more well under wraps. And I think even at that point in time, even the county council, the council people, they realized they were getting beat up. They made a bad move by where they were going. Tell the truth, I would have preferred to hear what you guys were saying so that we could analyze and look at what you guys are saying, and we come and say, oh, no, I disagree with this. Oh, no, I disagree with that. Oh, yeah, that looks good. See, right now, we have a clue where you guys are coming from, except for Ms. Keene. She's made a couple of comments. Mayor, you made a couple of comments. I think Mr. Charles Ingram, he started and he said he's going to wait till this evening. You know what I mean? Bottom line is, you guys have been elected to positions. You know what I mean? So pretty much you are a lot more familiar. Like, well, we just got this evening. And I couldn't attend this morning, so I looked at it on video, the feed. Some of the things that was mentioned, so I was looking for that here. HB 581, that came up. I'm glad you all are messing with that, because we need to keep that. The next thing, I think Councilman Keene, she said about the cushioning from 3 months, from 6 months to 3 months, in terms of in case we have a catastrophic situation, like Mr. Jelly was saying. Yeah, I think we need to leave it at 6 months. You know what I mean? That's my take. And then one of the things I heard is like, we have 18 million of unpaid taxes. Is that true?
I think
Not
that
18
might have
million,
been
no.
the House Bill 581 market reduction.
Right.
18 million,
Right, that's correct.
yeah.
We have
So-
$18 million, $18,823,174 in exemptions from House Bill 581.
Okay. All right, then, because I was trying to figure what. And then, I think we kind of mentioned perception versus reality, because not knowing where you guys stand, you know what I mean? Because again, I don't have the ability to go through this, like you do. You know what I mean? So I see Ms. Faust came up there and she put some stuff out there. Yeah, that's kind of very interesting. You know what I mean? 'Cause we really don't know. Every time we have meetings here, I always said, hey, please keep us updated on, especially on that city hall. Very, very important, because I rooted for it. I think I'm glad it's there. Yeah, but it's been a while now. I know we went on once or twice for contracts. I use that. I use the senior center. Hey, you straight about that. I use it. You know, the food ain't the greatest, but then again, I understand it's money. So they're using so I'm glad with that, because there's some older guys up there who, you know, they show up religiously. And some of these guys are veterans, old veterans. You know what I mean? Not for veterans only, they're regular old individuals. And I think it's deserving of that to be happening, because when my mother in D.C., you know what I mean, when she got up there to 88, 89, she died when she was 91 years, she used to go to the senior center in D.C., and they kept that bad boy going. So I would like for the, you know, if you want to see that kind of money, that, and I always mention it, the senior center and the, what do you call it, the playground, the water parks, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think we need that. So I don't mind taking a hit, but not for too long, but I don't mind taking a hit. So I still need to hear from you guys to know where you guys are coming from. I really don't know. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Well, I'll start, Bert, and try to give you a little bit of what I said this morning, expound on some of that. Yes, sir?
Can you start with what's with the legal on the Jacoby stuff? What can you start with that?
Well, I can tell you what I know, which is that Mr. Coughlin was on his way, I guess Tuesday night to Atlanta before he was called and told to turn around and go back home. Apparently the legal teams from both sides have been working on some sort of deal. We don't know anything about the structure of that deal yet. I mean, myself, or I don't think anybody in the city, it's JDA's legal team and Mr. Jacoby's team that are, and he told me that he thought they would have some information to share tomorrow. I mean, so that's all I know. So
I don't think your microphone is on.
it is. So,
Not talking.
but
Or maybe bring it closer.
so how's my level over there, Deborah?
It could come up a little bit.
Okay. So so that's where we are coming inlet. Hopefully we'll know something, or that property. I don't know if it's properly called Cumberland Inlet any longer, but the situation that has led me to kind of get behind keeping this millage rate where it is there's multiple things going on, as you said, that devil's in the detail and the minutia, but you know, at 5.439, the city of St. Mary's still has the lowest tax rate, you know, of any of the municipalities in our county. We were the only municipality, as you know, that passed the House Bill 581. So to protect homeowners who, you know, would be paying basically the exact same amount of money if they have that homestead exemption. That homestead exemption happened automatically if you already filed for your county homestead exemption that's been out there for years. What I was a little shocked to find when we were looking at these numbers was that there's only a little over 1,900 folks in St. Mary's that have taken advantage of that 581 because they have the county exemption. So there are potentially a number of residents who aren't taking advantage of the county exemption or now the 581 exemption, and I encourage them to do so. We're happy to have their excess taxes if they want to have their property values continue going up. You know, nobody's complaining about that, but I encourage you to take advantage of the things that are available to you. You know, just like when you file your taxes, nobody wants to pay more taxes than you legally have to. You know, so do the right thing there. But one of the things that this slight holding of the millage rate will only really result in about $282,000 of additional income to the city. And part of that we've seen could potentially be eaten up by property tax adjustments, where people do go and appeal what is in this current digest, and they get an appeal approved and the value goes back down, and so then we don't end up collecting that money that we right now think we're going to get, because the digest is still in flux and could be changed before, before it comes time for them to pay their tax bills. That in 2024 amounted to $123,000, so almost half right there of the $282,000. And we currently also have $129,000 and some change of unpaid tax bills. I mean, staff still working to collect that, and hopefully over time, we will collect that, but those two things together put us at, $250,000 that affects our current budget. And so this does provide a little bit of cushion, if you will, or contingency for some of that. I'm a property owner here in St. Mary's. I have 5 different tax parcels I pay tax on, only one, obviously, that I have a homestead exemption on. So I'm not excited about paying more taxes either. But I think part of it for me, and this will get back to one of Ms. Faust's questions, is kind of a quality of life situation. And I think a lot of the people who I spoke to during the election, so one of the things I heard a lot about was quality of life issues. The way our city looks, the way our streets look, the way the grass is growing over the curbs, those kinds of things. And so to ask the question, how much is the private contractors saving us money, you would first have had to have been providing that service and to have seen what the change was, because, we now have a higher level of upkeep and maintenance of these major thoroughfares than we had. And I, for one, think it looks much better when you drive out the highway and see the grass cut. Hopefully that improves even more when our street sweeper arrives here in the next month or so. We'll make it look even better along the curbs. But it's, many municipalities have gone private with contracting for multiple reasons. The cost of benefits and things for the city employees is just not cost effective, for the city staff to be doing those things when there are mowing services and landscapers out there that do that at a much lower rate than could be done if we were providing that same level of service. But one of the things that has allowed us to do is to take the staff that we have and to penetrate into the neighborhoods and get into the ditches and cut some of the other side streets and start to maintain some of the other areas of the city that were being ignored. And we weren't doing a great job of the main thoroughfares either prior, so I think that's an improvement in that quality of life. We are actively working on our recreation situation and hoping to improve our ball fields and our athletic fields, our courts. Monday night we'll have presented a couple of bids for resurfacing or redoing our tennis courts and make some decisions there, hopefully. We've been talking about pickleball courts. We've been talking about enhancements to other things that are out on the fields out there. These things are not currently in the current budget, but they're going to take some revenue to affect these changes and improve these quality of life situations. And so if you've been watching the news much lately, if you're following what's going on down in Fernandina, they're trying to institute paid parking down there because they have $151 million of capital needs because they've largely ignored, taking care and doing things. And, you just can't continue to ignore these things because they just grow and they just get bigger. And, we're not making much of an effort here really to address a lot of that in this budget, but we're trying to hold her on and to be efficient and cost effective where we can, and trying to make some positive changes that we see within the community. And so that was another kind of reason that I felt like it was important to at least try to hold this ground. The Senior Citizen Center, correct me if I'm wrong, but the expenses that are going on with the center itself, are paid through by the hospital authority and are not direct city expenses. But we do have air conditioning in the building and those kinds of things. And I know we talked about this at a prior council meeting when we were talking about the bid. And for just our power alone, in city facilities is, it's expensive to be operating that building and this building, and we do need to move forward as quickly as possible with moving into that building and getting that situation so that we can vacate these facilities and move on with that transition. What's going on with that right now is we have gone back to the drawing board with the architect and simplified some of the plans, eliminated the court, whereas court could continue to be held in the new council chambers for a while. Trying to just put some of those things on the back burner, which really affected some of the work that had to be done to the east-facing facade in the cost-saving measures, and we now have those final plans, or they're pretty close. We should be going out to bid within the next couple of weeks. Okay, so hopefully we can get that, and we'll get some more palatable bids, for where we stand now. But as we all know, it's not getting any less expensive to build or do anything else. Everything, cost is continuing to rise the longer we wait. And that's the same for the city too. I don't know anyone whose costs to run their household are the same as they were 2 years ago. A rollback rate, would basically put us back there of trying to operate on the same funds essentially that we had 2 years ago. And it's just not really doable and feasible. I mean, employees, are getting necessary and prudent, increases. Our cost of doing business, our cost of electricity, our cost of services are going up, and it's important that we try to keep pace with that and still be fiscally responsible. The issue of the amount of the fund equity balance. I have had numerous conversations with Mr. Horton over the last couple of months about my interest in trying to put the proper amount of that, to work for the city so that it's a benefit, that we're not just sitting on money we don't need to be sitting on. But as these dips that were shown in the graph, when we had brushes by hurricanes, not even the near to the direct hit. I mean, I think the one in 2018 went up the western coast of Florida, and we still incurred that kind of damage. And it's unfortunately not something that you could spend down in the next couple of months because hurricane season is over, but then replace it by, next, June when it starts up again. We have to take a longer view of that and try to make sure that we think we have that current amount. And I know that's a conversation that several of us want to have as to what that level should be. And we dip into that fund equity to try to keep the budget down and keep the cost to the taxpayer down, when necessary. So we do dip into that fund equity. Our current budget had a little over $1 million, I think, of fund equity in it. It was,
Yes.
so, so there, we are putting some of that money to work to try to keep the millage rate down and to keep the taxes down. So, those are a few of the points that I had, like I said, for the relatively small sum of money, and the fact that we did pass House Bill 581, and that if you took advantage of that, is, your property taxes are not going up here. I mean, your assessment should be the same, your taxes will be the same as they were. And if you haven't taken advantage of that, I encourage you to get out there and do that. But I'll open it up to any other council members.
I have some comments.
Okay.
With respect to the general fund equity balance, or what you might call our reserves, there are some well-established benchmarks for that. And the Coastal Regional Commission, which serves 10 counties and 35 cities in the coastal area, encourages 3 to 6 months of operating expenses to be held in reserves for emergencies. And currently, right now, we have $1.7 million a month that we spend out of the general fund. And our fund balance, according to Marcia Klecken, is 12.3 million. So that means we have reserved 7.1 months. And just to quickly demonstrate what that means, and let me, for a point of reference, I'll give you Tybee Island. They have 4 months in reserve. Brunswick has 5.1 months. So if we were to go to the low end, which I would say no less than 4 months, our current reserves are $5.4 million over what a 4-month reserve would be. And this is, think about this in terms of having a cushion, okay, and putting our money, your tax dollars and mine, and all of ours to work for the city. At 5 months, which is sort of a midpoint, our current reserves put us $3.6 million over what they would need to be by these standards. At 6 months, we're over by $1.9 million. So, and 6 months is the high end of what the Coastal Regional Commission that serves coastal communities recommends. That's the high end of the range. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs says that anything less than 1.8 months indicates fiscal risk. Okay, so anywhere between 3 and 6 months is prudent. I wouldn't, I don't like the idea of going to 3 months, but I would be okay with 5 months. The other thing, so those are the benchmarks and what they would mean to us in terms of our cushion. So again, at 4 months, $5.4 million cushion. At 6 months, we have a $1.9 million reserve cushion. The other thing is, and I think some of this may have been mentioned, but we budgeted $5.4 million for tax revenues. At the rollback rate, we would be collecting 5.477. Okay, so
Can you say those numbers again?
yeah, we budgeted $5,428,000. I'm just going to round that off because it's easier to remember. At the rollback rate, we would be bringing in $5,477,000. So, we're bringing in, even at the rollback rate, more than what we budgeted, what we just finished approving in our balanced budget. So the reason we have fund equity is many years we don't spend everything that we bring in. So it goes into our fund equity and reserves. So I feel that right now, for everybody in the room, it costs more to exist right now. Tariffs are affecting us. There are a lot of citizens that are really strapped. And I'm not sure that this is the right time for us to give any increases. And I'll say something else. I realize that we are the only municipality in the county that adopted House Bill 581. And that is something that everybody should be taking advantage of. But the other thing I think that we're not doing right now is, the council, the mayor, the city manager, we need to get busy and start talking to Stephen Sains about what the benefits are for us. Because when the state was promoting House Bill 581, they said that they would help the municipalities that kept the taxpayers' rates, the tax burden lower. That was the goal with House Bill 581. So we need to tap into some of the state tax money. And I think that's something we will do. But that is another thing that will bring us money that we need to do the things that we want to get done, to take care of our roads, to take care of our infrastructure. And, we can do some of the other things that we want to do for quality of life with our reserve buffer. So those are my points on that, and I'll turn it over to anyone else.
I thought I was going to be the only one saying this, but apparently Ms. Keene is seemingly to be on the same page. We haven't really spoke about it, but I'm for adopting the rollback rate, to be cleared, for that 5.2%. I think that people right now need money now. They don't need money later, whereas I think this city will be in good shape in about 2 years. So I think in 2 years with the development coming, it's something that we might have to tighten our belt. If you were to ask Dave Ramsey, and if the city was a person, what we should do, he would say, be more efficient and make cuts and just tighten the belt for 2 years till you can get to where you can live like no one else. What I've never heard of a municipality doing is doing any sort of a tax increase and then doing well later on and saying, you know what, we've done so good, we're going to lower your taxes. I've just not heard of that, and I don't believe that we're going to be any different when it comes to that. So there are 3 bullet points I have for why I think we should adopt the rollback rate. I do agree with the mayor that we have a lot of expenses, and we want that kind of quality of life. We want things to look good when you come in. I think it's looking significantly better, and I think our staff is doing a tremendous job. In no way, shape, or form am I saying any of these points about, as a rock to throw at our staff, because I think they're doing great. But I think that smart growth and development to fund city services is way more important than squeezing it out of existing homeowners. And I know this won't be a tax increase for everybody, but if we would focus more on smart development, and I'm not talking about apartments, but we need to issue more permits. We need to make permitting easier. We need to make it to where developers want to do business in St. Mary's. And when we issue things like that, we need to be consistent. And sometimes the rules seem to change from developer to developer. How do I know that? Because I hear from all of them. They're telling me, I'm asking questions, and it just seems that there's a little bit of, in Kingsland, some of them don't even know who the city manager is. Maybe it's a little too easy to do business, but we want to have that reputation where it's easier to do business. The other thing is I think we should use 3 months of fund equity. As Ms. Keene already pointed out, at 7.1 months, that would bring us back to 4, and that is significantly more than $282,000. I think just to have a tax increase for another $282,000 when we'd get significantly more out of fund equity, I think that would be a better route to go, and it would be able to cover a lot of these things for the quality of life we're talking, such as recreation. We've got the big thing with City Hall, so we have a lot in the pipeline, and I think that would be good, and it would still leave us in good shape. And then lastly, I think efficient government first and then higher taxes later. If I were ever going to pay for another study, and I know people are just sick to death of hearing we're about to do another study, it would be for a government efficiency study, just to learn where we can make cuts and how we can be more efficient. But I would look at raising any sort of taxes, absolute dead last, and to learn to be more efficient and to make cuts more in government first. So my suggestion would be to tighten the belt, make cuts for 2 years until some of this growth with development pours in, and then we'll be in good shape. But I don't believe that people can stand to have anything. We need the money right now. I don't think having that reputation and setting that pattern that we're going to even do slight increases in taxes is the way to go. And this would send a strong message to our citizens who I think need and deserve the help right now.
You stole my thunder.
Thunder away. You be the lightning.
No, I feel exactly the same way that you do. I'm at the age that I talk to a lot of people my age, and especially around here in the downtown area. We have people that's been here all their lives like I have, and I won't say they're living on a fixed income, but they are, because, their little retirement is all they have to look forward to. Some people coming from other places have a little bit more cushion but some of the people that I know, going to the doctor or buying an extra steak for dinner can put them in the poorhouse. And you might say, that's not true, but you'll be surprised how many people are living from day to day. And I can understand Mr. Jolly talking about hurricanes and things. I've been here for 75 years, and the worst storm that I saw was in 1964, Hurricane Dora. And we survived. And you can't put up enough money, you can't save up enough money to plan for a hurricane. The water is going to do what it's going to do. The devastation that we have is going to be there. And I don't want to put a burden on the people that's here now for something that might happen. I want to tighten our belts, like you said, and the development that we've started, our staff is doing a great job with making sure things are taking place that should be taking place for the new people to come in and help with our tax burden. So if we can just keep going to where we're going in the next 2, maybe 3 years, we should see a lot more revenue coming in for taking on some of these big jobs that we need to take on. But right now, I can't see raising taxes at all, not even $5 per person, to pay for something that may or may not happen. We have enough running revenue where we can survive. Even if we have a minor catastrophe, we could still survive. And if we have a major one, the little bit of tax money that we'll get won't be but a drop in the bucket anyway. So, I mean, I don't want to see any increase in taxes as far as I'm concerned for the citizens of St. Mary's.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. First, I have not made a total decision, but I do want to play a little bit of, devil's advocate towards that. And I'm going to start with one comment. I know the mayor made a good run through of Ms. Faust's concerns. Back in May, when we were leading into a town hall or discussion, or I guess a work session, on City Hall, I'd requested the operating expenses, what it does cost monthly with everything wrapped into City Hall. And if I'm not mistaken, back in May, that number was $14,400 a month. Is that correct, Ms. Pekin?
I'd have to double check that.
I mean, that's what the email you sent me, so I looked back. So if that was the number, so that's correct. So I do agree with you. That is wasteful spending. That's something that we've tried to move forward, but we've had, multiple things come up where we couldn't get everybody on the same page to be able to move forward on a plan. And we do need to stop that bleeding very, very soon. So hopefully we'll be in line to put, those plans out for City Hall to get a bid and move forward with that project so that we can get down to one building and not, be spending a lot of money on 2 different buildings. Also, I'd ask for some numbers. We all did approve the budget that we have, so everybody's approved the budget. So, what we're doing is just trying to make sure that we're all, responsibly trying to approve how to pay for it, and also to make sure that we have proper reserves. And, I guess we could have a discussion on where, we feel our reserves should be. But I know that other cities, even in the county, do have at least 6 months reserves, sitting there. And it does seem like a fair number when you look at the graph and see what it does cost when not even a major storm comes through. But I did ask for some numbers, where we're looking at a digest increase of 5.18%. So that means that we should have roughly a 5.18% and a modest increase in collections for the city, if we do just keep the millage rate the same. But we also had, when we approved this budget, that we all agreed on, and there's not really a whole lot of wants in that budget. It's mostly needs. And that was a 9.19% increase, and we are using a little bit over $1 million of our fund equity to pay for this budget. So it is reducing that number that we have in our reserves. And we didn't approve the city hall, that is coming in that budget. So that number is a pretty large chunk that's going to come out as well, that's going to eat up the reserves that we're looking at. Is that a correct statement, Ms. Marcia?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to make
How
sure.
much do we have for the city hall? Was it 3.5
We penciled in 3.5, but we pulled it out of the budget.
Put
so
it
we
on, put it back in the
we put
fund
it back in the
equity,
fund
so
equity.
that's
Yeah.
part of that money sitting there.
That's
yeah.
why that
Yeah.
money's sitting there,
Yeah.
because we have to, when that time comes, we were set to approve at least $3.5 million of that, and it went back into the budget. So then that means we have less reserves than stated. So we are going to be a little bit lighter in those reserves than what we had just heard. I understand a fixed income, and my dad's on fixed income. That's all he's got. But I feel like the percentage of people who do utilize the homestead exemption, and especially House Bill now 581, that they are utilizing that, because those are the people that are retired that pay attention and actually make sure they're saving every dime and nickel. So I would definitely like to say that I feel like the majority of people that are in that situation should not be affected by a tax increase, should we decide that it's the right and proper thing to do and the most responsible thing to do, which maybe it is to keep the same tax rate. I know that sitting in a financial standpoint, if we were just to say, hey, a recommendation from, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but, it's just somebody that looks at our numbers every day, and that's their job. I think if Ms. Marcia had her way, we might have a 6% millage rate suggestion. But we're not doing that. We are putting the taxpayer dollars to work, and we are taking some of that additional money and savings to keep the millage rate at a very modest rate. And I would hate to see us get into a point where if something did happen that we're scrambling, kind of like the county commissioners did, and feel like there needs to be a huge tax increase all at one time. It's a very modest collection to keep just enough in reserves, hopefully, and not have to have a huge tax increase, at any point in given time. So that's just a few thoughts on that.
I'm going to make mine brief, because basically everything's been said that I've really been thinking about. But nobody's really in for raising anybody's taxes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we want to be able to keep taxes where they are. But in future years, if we have no choice, we have no choice but to raise taxes. We got to be able to meet the demand that they're charging, and this, that, and the other. And as far as the other stuff, and I just went brain dead for a second, but the other stuff, we want to make absolute sure that we have enough equity that we can be able to do the things that we need to do, okay? Because it's just a matter of time, and Lord, I hope I'm wrong, but it's just a matter of time before St. Mary's probably gets a bad hurricane. And we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared financially. We need to be prepared with everybody in the city of St. Mary's, from the police department to the fire department to everything. And do they need to be doing stuff right now to prepare for that? I'm sure they are. They're going through this, that, and the other to get better with that, to make sure that we can handle those things. But I think we need to have adequate amount in there to be able to take care of something that's going to happen in the future. I mean, we've got to be able to plan. We've got to be able to have the money to get the job done. And that's about all I want to say. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything?
I'll be quiet.
Okay. So like I said, we heard a little bit about, where we stand there, Mr. Seals, and we'll have another third meeting here on next Monday prior to the city council meeting, where we'll actually take up the issue for vote. The one thing I did kind of want to add, I guess, is that I know Mr. Faust has requested a kind of a presentation, and we're working to kind of put that together.